Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 12th Annual Forum of the UNDP Business Call to Action being held at the sidelines of the 77th UN General Assembly. I'm Maria Ramos, and it's my pleasure and privilege to be the official Master of Ceremonies of the BCtA 12th Annual Forum. And we are delighted to have all of you with us here today for this two-day virtual event. And it's a special space connecting business leaders, policymakers, and development practitioners from all over the world. And we'll be discussing the role of the private sector in development cooperation, plus how innovative forms of collaboration between the public and private sector can actually drive sustainable development. Now, the private sector, we know, drives economic growth, and we know that when prosperity is equally distributed across society, economies grow faster. So this year's BCtA Forum focuses on that power of collaboration and shines a spotlight on the potential of innovative public-private partnerships. And now it gives me great pleasure to call on Luciana de AGUIAR, the Program Manager of the UNDP Business Call to Action, to provide us with a warm welcome and to formally open the forum. So without further ado, welcome to you, Luciana.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for introducing me. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our esteemed guests, panelists, donors, participants across the globe. Welcome to the Business Call to Action Annual Forum happening on the sidelines of the 77th UN General Assembly. Our forum this year is around the theme of collaboration. Collaboration is the starting point that leads to inclusive innovation, and together they are at the core of the response to these uncertain times. Many governments have welcomed innovative ways to address challenges posed by the current interlocked crisis to their societies. We have seen the setbacks faced by businesses in developing countries, with revenues falling 70% at the peak of the pandemic. We have seen climate change accelerating the knock-on effects on global supply chains, economies, and geopolitics. We also have seen the disruption posed by conflicts that resulted in soaring prices for food and energy, pushing an additional 100 million people into poverty so far. Never before there has been a greater need of a concerted and transformative alignment of multi-stakeholder collaboration to transform to provide rapid and inclusive development for those in need. At BCtA, we view this multi-layered crisis as a renewed and required call to action for businesses and investors to join forces with the public sector in driving more inclusive economic growth for leaving no one behind. Effective private sector engagement in development moves the way towards an inclusive, just, and sustainable economic growth through inclusive innovation, changes in public service delivery through transparent collaboration with small businesses, increased private sector accountability and integrity in managing impact on people and the planet. These are the pillars of an integrated solution that Business Call to Action is leading globally to show the power of collaboration in delivering essential services to underserved communities. In this annual forum, you hear our panelists' examples of how companies, foundations, investors, governments, bilateral and multilateral cooperation, as well as development banks and agencies in their unique capacities, can contribute to advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. It's my pleasure to formally welcome you all to the 12th Business Call to Action Annual Forum. And finally, I'd like to thank our donor, the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA, which has been instrumental to the success of BCtA over the years. We are also grateful to the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany and the Asian Development Bank for collaborating with this initiative. Thank you for your participation. I hope we have an engaging and informative discussion on how to unlock the potential of collaboration. Thank you so much. Over to you, Maria.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Luciana. Really great to hear those insightful welcome remarks. All right, now let me introduce to you our first guest keynote speaker for the day, Marcos Neto. Now, Marcos is currently the director of the UNDP Sustainable Finance Hub, and over the past 25 years, Marcos has led efforts for sustainable development, poverty eradication, and multi-stakeholder partnership building. And he is a passionate advocate for the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. And he actually led the development of the UNDP's new private sector strategy and its offers on SDG finance, among many others. Marcos joined UNDP in February 2013 and has since led UNDP's global work on private sector development and foundations at UNDP's headquarters in New York. Ladies and gentlemen, I now give the floor to Marcos Neto.
Thank you very much, Maria. It's a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much, Luciana. It's wonderful to see the continuous success of BCtA thanks to your leadership and the team. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in these days. I'm coming to you from New York, from the middle of the 77 UN General Assembly. And it's wonderful that you all made the time to join us in thinking about those collaborations. Now, as Luciana was mentioned, the current context of multi-layer uncertainties, crisis rising from the pandemic, which is not yet over, wars, disputes, and a exacerbation of what is a long-term crisis that's going to be with us, and we are already seeing very vividly of climate change, has posed many setbacks in sustainable development. The SDG finance gap has increased by 70% and is now standing at $4.2 trillion annually to stay on track for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which we have to be honest, we are not on track. These adverse circumstances have nonetheless led to possibilities to reimagine development and stimulate structural transformation to beget innovation, inclusive and digital solutions, where the private sector play a crucial role. It is important to note the design of transformational solutions is a multi-stakeholder process, involving not just the private sector, but also consumers, governments, and investors. No sector holds all the levers for creating public value. We need to set a new course for socially just, low carbon, and climate resilient world, where no one is left behind. This is why UNDP has launched a $1 trillion moonshot to promote the alignment of public and private sector resources with the SDG by 2025. This is a global call to action, and I'm repeating today, so you can all join us in whatever way you can. Private sector has a critical role in delivering the collective needs with the public sector. However, we are aware that sustainable development needs should be shaped into a financially sound and attractive business proposition, offering market return, risk return profiles, as well as growth prospect, but evermore focusing on generating a social and environmental impact, as well as a profitability. With the GISD Alliance, we have made more than 400 SDG aligned investment opportunities in 19 countries available to investors. I also invite business to co-create signature solutions together, powered by innovation, digital tools, and the right types of finance. For example, we provide tailored business development and sustainable innovation programs through our SDG accelerators. At UNDP, we also work with public partners to help crowd in finance from the private sector, building partnerships, scaling innovative finance mechanisms, and to improve the effectiveness of financial resources. A very good example of facilitating public-private collaboration to advance solutions for sustainable development is exactly what our host for the next 2 days, the Business Call to Action's government-led program on inclusive innovation, implemented with the government of Colombia, eGov Lab, to increase access to telehealth to the rural poor, by training and structuring an ecosystem of local entrepreneurs that provided the government viable option to expand care capacity and implement self-diagnosis and virtual care tools that improve access to basic medical service. The program also strengthens the capacity of the national government to implement inclusive and sustainable public procurement and manage the impact. UNDP, through the Business Call to Action, develops strategic tools that governments can use to leverage the annual multi-trillion-dollar public procurement budgets to support sustainable development. Public procurement enables alignment in sustainable finance solutions by serving as a policy instrument that governments can use to propel changes in public service delivery, create fiscal space and jobs by partnering with the private sector to stimulate growth in industries that are often untouched. Nowadays, there is a new approach in public procurement through which governments meet their needs for goods and services. Inclusive public procurement, which engages governments, micro, small, and medium enterprises, and inclusive business to provide them with the service they need. IPPs designed to maximize equitable economic, social, and environmental benefits with the primary aim of promoting supplier diversity through including medium, small enterprises and inclusive business and other socially disadvantaged groups as active group and service providers within the supply chain. The potential of empowering both the public and private sectors through tools like inclusive innovation, inclusive public procurement, and including in impact measurement and management, among others, become a key prerequisite in making SDG finance more systemic and impact-centric. Business Call to Action is a pioneer in advocating impact measurement and management and leading the global efforts to streamline this practice in enterprise operating and emerging economies. The Sustainable Finance Hub that I'm the director of recognizes the importance of improving impact management for shifting the current systems of decision-making towards investing with positive impact on people and the planet. In addition, we deploy a multidimensional response to address the key business challenges and stimulate inclusive business transformation through initiatives like the Accelerator Labs, the Innovation Facility, and the Private Sector Global Facility. To conclude, let me reiterate that the private sector plays a critical role in delivering the collective needs with the public sector, especially in the context of developing countries, at a time that is characterized by multi-layers of challenges caused by the pandemic and other global geopolitical issues, and the ever-growing feeling on our daily lives of the climate crisis. The way to advance sustainable development forward is by forging collaboration, aiming at public and private actors. It is never about the context between profit-driven and social good. UNDP is ready to help crowdfunding finance for the private sector, build partnership, scale up innovative finance mechanisms, and improving the effectiveness of financial resources. I invited all of you, both public and private sector actors, with us today and tomorrow to participate in this call, to work collaboratively, innovatively, and to realize that we owe to our lives today, to the future generations, to come together to solve the world's problems, which are, and the solution, the roadmap to solving those world problems are the Sustainable Development Goals. I wish you all a fantastic 2 days. I wish you, Luciana, and the team, a wonderful couple of days, and I look forward to hearing your deliberations, recommendations, and more important, you're coming together as partners, even though we are virtual. I think we've learned enough now how to make partnership work in this format. I turn back to my good friend Maria, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much, Marcos. Great keynote speech. All right, we now turn our attention to hear our second keynote speech, and this time from the head of Unit for Global Sustainable Economic Development at the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SCHEDVIN. Now, throughout her 20 years of working with development cooperation, True has covered different aspects of inclusive economic development, from policy methods to implementation of programs. And in her previous role as chief economist at SIDA, True led a team on multi-dimensional poverty analysis, emphasizing the perspective of people living in poverty. Now, True has hosted Nobel laureate Professor Joseph Stiglitz and 12 world-leading economists at the conference that led to the creation of the Stockholm Statement, which sets out 8 principles for inclusive and sustainable economic development. True, thank you so much for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maria, and thank you, Luciana, for inviting us and SIDA to this event. And thanks, Marcos, for very inspiring keynote speech. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everybody that are participating. I'm very honored to have this opportunity to participate at the inauguration of Business Call to Action's 12th annual forum. As we've already heard from the other introductions, and as we all know, we are living in very turbulent times. The impact of this economic instability, of climate change, of conflict, and of the pandemic are also mostly strongly felt by those who were already in a very vulnerable situation. For example, low-skilled workers in the informal markets, the small businesses that have very little capital savings, smallholder farmers, and so on. And within those groups, women and youth are particularly affected. So with this development, we need to pay particular attention to increasing inequality. And our joint efforts for inclusive development, including inclusive business strategies, are extremely important. And we know that during challenging times like these, the need for certainty in our commitments and strategies for inclusive and sustainable development become even more evident. And what we do know is that strength and collaboration between actors is particularly crucial. With this daunting developmental and environmental challenges that we are facing, of course, we all understand that no actor can carry the solutions needed on its own. Continuing to unlock the potential of partnership across public, private, civil society, and research fields is very urgent. We basically need all hands on deck, join forces in the same direction for sustainable and inclusive development. And we need to combine different actors' knowledge and competence for the best results. And we need to catalyze capital for inclusive development results. So this year's annual forum's theme, focusing on power of collaboration, is strategic and important and calls on all of us to act. Sweden's overall objective for development cooperation is poverty alleviation, and we keep our emphasis on leaving no one behind, with poor people's perspective and the rights perspective at the very core of all of our operations. We see that inclusive business has a vital role to play in developing local solutions that responds to the preconditions of vulnerable groups in specific contexts, groups that otherwise risk falling behind. Over the years, we are happy to have partnered with Business Call to Action in order to join forces in engaging public and private actors for systemic change, where businesses can grow within the planetary boundaries. Business Call to Action is also particularly serves as a platform for further accelerate action towards gender equality, which is extremely important in the developments that we see today, where women are even more affected negatively than men. And the Business Call to Action has provided guidance on how businesses can engage, as well as by demonstrating valuable examples of public-private partnership. As a result, we now see more and more examples of co-designed collaboration models where governments and local entrepreneurs and stakeholders come together to deliver essential services and goods to underserved communities. I want to highlight two such examples, which we are proud to have contributed to. And one of them is the identification of innovative telehealth solutions for prenatal, natal, and postnatal services, enhancing the situation for women living in rural and remote areas of Colombia. This was carried out with local partners as part of Business Call to Action's inclusive innovation journey. Another example is the SIDA supported innovative agri-tech solutions with Business Call to Action, whereby climate tech solutions helped increase the sustainability of farming practices. So digital platforms made technology accessible for low-income farmers, and specific sensor mechanisms assisted in optimizing water consumption for the farmers. This is a very concrete example, and it decreased the environmental impact from the farming itself, whilst supporting these smallholder farmers' livelihood. These are just a few of very many promising programs that offers us an opportunity to learn and to ensure that we unlock the potential of innovative public-private collaboration for inclusive development. As always, at Business Call to Action events, it is extremely encouraging to see how businesses, governments, and civil society come together with a commitment to collaborate and take action. And with that, I would like to thank you again for this opportunity. And we look forward to learning from each other in fruitful discussions that can help us to catalyze the transformation needed for an inclusive development that is sustainable in all its 3 dimensions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, True. Fantastic to hear your keynote speech. All right, and I would actually like to thank all our opening speakers, Luciana, Marcos, and True, for joining me in kicking off the first day of BCTA's 12th annual forum. And now, as we begin our programming for the day, please feel free to tweet and share the event using the hashtag BCTA Forum and also BCTA Live. So I repeat, BCTA Forum and BCTA Live, those are our hashtags. And now let's get the day started with our very first session entitled Innovative Public-Private Collaborations for Sustainable Development, Replicating Inclusive Business to Government Models, tackling the first pillar of the integrated solution that BCtA offers. So now I hand over the discussion to Juan David Martin Jimenez, who will be moderating this session. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Maria, and good morning, afternoon, and evening to our esteemed panelists and an audience from around the world. My name is Juan David Martin, and I'm the leader and head of experimentation at UNDP Accelerator Lab Colombia. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this session that convenes key representatives from the public-private innovation ecosystem to discuss the potential of innovative public-private collaborations through inclusive business to government, B2G models, in the delivery of essential services to the last mile. Talking about innovation could be a challenge. We talk about the semantics for hours. Today, we're not going to stop on that. We're going to see cases where innovation is built from shared visions of development. Inclusive innovation and collaboration are the core of building back better. Let's see at what example of recent times. The scope and urgency of the impacts of COVID-19, coupled with the effects of climate change, have provided ideal conditions for governments to claim leadership and innovation and direct it toward the challenges faced by the societies. However, government must tap into support, expertise, and existing best practices to drive inclusive innovation that expands and sustains the delivery of essential services while addressing pre-existing and emerging development gaps. The private sector has already devised inclusive solutions for a multitude of problems faced by governments and societies. Business that serve the government, B2G, operate on proven models designed to serve low-income populations across multiple geographies, including through tech-enabled solutions that, 1, deliver cost-effective healthcare services, ensure crop productivity and smallholder farmers' income, or 3, provide livelihood skills development through e-learning or access to affordable internet services. B2G models act as a key mechanism to mitigate the risk inherent to innovation that governments might face when creating innovative solutions for underserved communities. In 2021, UNDP Colombia, the Accelerator Lab, and Business Call to Action joined forces with a Colombia government agency, Impulsa Mi Lab, to pilot the Inclusive Innovation Journey Program, Más Vida, Accelerating Telehealth in Colombia. This was a government-centered inclusive innovation process focused on connecting health public actors and local telehealth solutions for prenatal, natal, and postnatal services to the development of inclusive business government B2G telehealth solutions. The pilot aimed to advance local telehealth solutions for local prenatal, natal, and postnatal health challenges, promote more sustainable, effective, and inclusive public-private collaborations in the telehealth sector, and ensure affordable and equitable access to essential health services and products to low and middle income populations in Colombia. As a result, we connected over 280 public actors, 8 local telehealth solutions, and 12 local and global partners, including GovTech experts, telehealth mentors, and impact investors, which we are happy to have with us today. We are sharing on the chat the article for the BCtA Colombia case. The Inclusive Innovation Journey methodology aims to strengthen the capacity of local private sector and bridge the development gap faced by governments by using tech-enabled, market-based businesses models to advance inclusive solutions to a B2G model. What is unique about this newly launched program is how it builds partnerships to support innovation processes and encourage formal innovation systems to focus on the poor, help the low-income actors to adapt, diffuse and use innovations, and work to address structural roadblocks. In the end, this innovation process sought to support the co-evolution of market and government to sustain a resilient, inclusive innovation ecosystem. Building on this pilot, this session aims to showcase the potential of government-led inclusive innovation and B2G models in providing essential goods and services to the underserved communities. To this end, I am pleased by the company of key representatives from the public-private innovation ecosystem to discuss the potential of innovative public-private collaborations through inclusive business to government B2G models in the delivery of essential services to the last mile. I would like to invite each of them to introduce themselves and briefly share their work, how their work connects to inclusive business to government models in the delivery of essential services. I am pleased to welcome Milagros Rivas to this panel. Milagros is the Division Chief Advisory Services at the IDB Invest, which she joined in 2021. She is responsible for leading the climate change, gender and inclusion, SME development, digitalization, and public-private partnership areas. Milagros, thank you for joining us today. We would like to briefly share with us your work and how it connects to inclusive business to government models or the private innovation ecosystem in the delivery of essential service to the last mile.
Thank you very much, Juan David, and thank you very much to UNDP for the invitation. I am honored to participate in this important discussion. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to our audience as well. IDB Invest is the private arm of the Inter-American Development Bank Group. We invest in the financial sector, corporates in the agribusiness, manufacturing, telecom, and tourism sectors, as well as in infrastructure. In addition, IDB Invest provides advisory services, which are the non-financial additionality that we bring to the table in order to maximize the impact of our investments. Through advisory services, we support private-public collaboration models that are inclusive and sustainable. In many of our operations, we see the value of public-private collaboration models to mobilize investment at large scale, and most important, bring intentionality to inclusion, raise the bar in sustainable and ESG standards, and aim for a more systemic solutions. One of the most efficient ways to catalyze impact-driven public-private collaboration is through PPPs, that stands for public-private partnerships. I will have the opportunity to go deeper in this successful model along this discussion.
Thank you, Milagros. I am pleased to welcome also Jose Lozano to this panel. Jose is the director of Alpha Mundi's Latin American office. Jose, thank you for joining us today. Would you like to briefly share with us your work and how it connects to inclusive business to government models or the public-private innovation ecosystem in the delivery of essential services to the last mile?
Thanks, Juan David. I'm happy to be here and joining everyone in this talk. I am Jose Lozano, the investment director of Alpha Mundi. We at Alpha Mundi are, as many people will have already listened to this term, an impact investor. We basically manage capitals from the private sector and take this capital and give funding to companies that in many ways are trying to help the most needed people in the region, not only Colombia, but also in other countries in Latin America and also in Africa. This is quite important because we try to bring the private capital to generate positive social and environmental impact, and in many cases, join forces with governments to help these companies be suitable for us to invest in the money and also to produce the social impact needed in the region. Thanks, Juan David.
Thank you, Jose. And now I'm pleased to welcome David Uribe to this panel. David is the Chief Technology Officer at Oracle, Colombia, and Ecuador. David, thank you for joining us today. Would you like to briefly share with us your work and how it connects to inclusive business-to-government models or the public-private innovation ecosystem in the delivery of essential services to the last mile?
Thank you, Juan. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Oracle, what I'm working on, has many lines of business, and sometimes they compete without providing the best solution for our customers sometimes. So my job is to give a single integrated view of a solution to our clients by coordinating this line of business. In Oracle, we work a lot with public sector, and we are consumers of those B2G models. So we'll talk a little bit about our experiences around this and the collaboration between government and technology companies like Oracle. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And I'm now pleased to welcome Lucy June to this panel. Lucy is the co-founder and CEO at Medico. Lucy joins Salud Tools to bring a fresh point of view and founded the solutions to Medico to tackle the inequality at the healthcare system in Colombia and to provide a great medical consultation experience to all people deserve. Lucy, thank you for joining us today. Would you like to briefly share with us your work and how it connects to inclusive business to government models or the public-private innovation ecosystem in the delivery of essential services to the last mile?
Sure, Juan. Thank you so much for the invitation. I am very, very honored to be here. I'm Lucy. I'm managing the telemedicine service to Medico in Colombia, and our goal is to make the healthcare accessible and affordable for everyone in Latin America. We're currently focusing on the primary care through the telemedicine service so that all Colombians and also all Latin Americans can have an easy access and fast access to the healthcare system that they really need, regardless of who they are, regardless of how much they make or where they are. So in order to do this right now, we're selling our telemedicine service through the local pharmacies in Colombia with a very economical price so that anyone can buy the telemedicine service just as easy as buying a bottle of water. We participated into the pilot program that Juan mentioned, the Inclusive Innovation Journey by UNDP and Business Call to Action, called Más Vida, Accelerating the Telehealth. It's early this year, and we learned so much about B2G model to expand our business into another level and also guarantee the access to more people and who are really need our service. So it was an amazing experience. We learned a lot, great discussion, great mentorship, great presentations, networking. So I'm happy to say that after that, we have been trying to achieve our first B2G alliance, and we just did our first step for our first B2G alliance. And thank you very much for all of you. And thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you, Lucy. And now I'm pleased to welcome Camilo Coronado to this panel. Camilo is a project management specialist for the governance at USAID, Colombia. In this role, Camilo currently manages the responsive governance activity, an effort to enhance good governance, strengthen public management, and increase the capacities of public institutions to provide effective services delivery in 34 conflict-affected municipalities. Camilo, thank you for joining us today. Would you like to briefly share with us your work and how it connects to inclusive business to government models or the public-private innovation ecosystem in the delivery of essential services to the last mile?
Thank you, Juan David, for the introduction. And I would also like to thank Business Call to Action and UNDP for having me here. I'm honored be with all of you and with my fellow panelists. Well, to answer your question, I will start mentioning that USAID Colombia relies in its work on the 2020-2025 Country Development Cooperation Strategy. Its goal is to support Colombia's journey to self-reliance. And self-reliance in this context means that Colombia has capacity and commitment, and I would like to highlight those words, capacity and commitment, to plan, finance, and implement its own solutions to development challenges. To achieve this goal, and now I link our strategy with your question, We, as USAID, need to bring together the public and the private sector to the same table, acknowledging first that both parties are at the cornerstone for Colombia's sustainable development, and second, that both parties need each other to amplify its impacts in terms of improving the quality of life of the most needed in the country, and second, of creating a sustainable and more equitable economic welfare. Now, my role in USAID is being an actor that can translate complex technical language into a simpler one, promoting thus a clearer space for the public and the private sector to collaborate. Also worth mentioning that USAID, as a development agency, we work with institutions, so we firmly believe that Colombia has a strong institution we can rely on. And we do this by using innovative public mechanisms to generate evidence that, if it is effective, could close the gaps in service delivery to the most needed population. Thank you, Juan, over to you.
Thank you, Camilo. And with that, we finish the presentation of the panelists. And we can see that from investment, cooperation, guidance, support, we're able to create strong environment to innovate in services with B2G models. Now we're going to go for specific questions. The first one is going to go to Milagros, which I remind you is the Chief of Advisory Services in the Inter-American Development Bank. Milagros, what is the role of impact-driven public-private collaboration models for sustainable development?
As mentioned before, one of the most efficient ways to catalyze impact-driven public-private collaboration is through PPPs. For those that are not familiar with these models, is a model where the government, through a very rigorous tendering processes, appoints a private company to provide a public service or build, operate, and maintain a public asset. We all know that successfully mobilizing public and private investment in infrastructure will have a high impact on the economic growth of developing countries. Let me share with you three impactful figures. First, an analysis done by IDB group specialists shows that countries in low-income regions with the right investment climates and the adequate incentives can see that growth rates could increase by 3.5 percentage points during a 10-year period. Secondly, every $1 billion invested in the development of infrastructure assets can create 35,000 jobs and formalize also the informal sectors. And third, every billion has the potential to increase the income of the average citizen in a range of 3 to 5%. All these data points demonstrate that this type of investment has an important effect on reducing poverty and inequality and creates the right conditions for SMEs to flourish and grow. But let me move to the next steps. PPPs are useful not only to attract financing and promote development, but also to crowd in innovations by leveraging the private sector's know-how and experience. These innovations can be implemented through the adoption of new technologies, through improved asset management techniques, or by achieving operational efficiencies. Finally, well-developed and planned PPPs can also bring other benefits for governments that are linked to sustainability, such as improved procurement processes, increased transparency, promotion of fair market conditions, and ability to provide SMEs access to markets and public procurement. All of them are vital factors to pave the way for private investments. In summary, there is a need to develop projects that are climate fit resilient and at the same time that deliver inclusive solutions for SMEs and for the citizens by improving connectivity, access to markets, access to new products and services, as well as creation of procurement and employment opportunities.
Thank you, Milagros. Would you like to add something more on how IDB is specifically investing in supporting local SMEs to effectively engage in public-private collaboration models?
Of course, overall, IDB Invest, through our investment and through our advisory work, supports the integration of SMEs in value chains, as well as its access to financial and non-financial services. Specifically, you will see this more in the context of investment in the telecom sector on infrastructure, where IDB Invest promotes economic prosperity and the improved well-being by catalyzing access to sustainable finance and bringing in innovative financial instruments. Those innovative instruments may be linked to the achievement of impact results. Let me share one example around this line. In the infrastructure sector, Puerto de Antioquia is a good example. In 2001, IDB Invest signed a loan for the construction, operation, and maintenance of Puerto de Antioquia through a PPP model, a new multi-purpose facility located in the Gulf of Urabá in Colombia. Due to its geostrategic location, it will be the port terminal closest to the main production and consumption centers of the country, becoming a key infrastructure for strengthening Colombian foreign trade. Additionally, it will allow small and large farmers in Urabá to boost their competitiveness and expand their presence in international markets. The implementation of the port project will generate more than 17,000 new jobs in Urabá, especially for SMEs. The team established agreements with local communities aimed at generating social value for the port sustainability, committing to hire local SMEs and promote the integral development for local economies and communities. For example, around catering, facility management, providing simple construction works. IDB Invest has promoted the alignment of Puerto of Antioquia with the highest international standards in socio-environmental matters, which also means that the project responds to the need to implement sustainable, safer, and more efficient transport infrastructures, which contribute to improving sustainable development goals. Another example is Tigo Colombia. A guarantee line was extended to support Tigo Colombia, a subsidiary of Millicom in Colombia, to support Tigo Colombia in the spectrum purchase and network rollout, including rural connectivity investment, providing foster broadband and capacity, especially to SMEs in rural areas. Through this partnership among Tigo, the Ministry of the Information and Communication Technologies, the Single Fund for Information and Communication Technologies, local banks like Bancolombia and IDB Invest, we all put joint efforts to contribute to reduce the digital divide in Colombia. The aim was to improve digital infrastructure availability and quality connectivity to rural communities, where data services such as mobile banking, digital healthcare, and digital agricultural productivity for small rural businesses are centerfront. This connectivity has the power to enable MSMEs integration in the local and national markets, enhance small producers' productivity, and increase livelihoods, to name a few. As part of our advisory services, we are working with Tigo in order to support the activation of digital connectivity through concrete pilots that will intentionally enhance rural MSMEs productivity and contribute to their growth. Those are examples on how public-private collaboration enhance SME growth and how IDB Invest is taking a pioneering role to foster this type of innovative models.
And thank you for your examples. Now we're going to go with Jose Lozano, the director of Altamundi Latin America. Jose, what are the key challenges you encounter when identifying and supporting SMEs to generate environmental and social impact on society?
Thank you, Juan David. And maybe I would start saying that the biggest challenge that we found every time we want to support companies is basically giving funding to the companies that have the highest risk, but produce a really big impact in society. Sometimes we do find impact initiatives in the region that have an amazing impact, but because of the risk level that these companies represent, they're not suitable for us. Some examples could be a small fintech that's going to support a specific industry in Colombia or in Mexico, an off-grid energy company in Colombia, or for example, a small fintech giving small loans to people that want to join the university for the first time. Given the risk of these companies, sometimes we're not able to give the funding needed, even though the company is really, really good and has an amazing impact and supports many people in the country.
Thank you, Jose. Now we go for our second question. What are the opportunities for more inclusive collaboration between governments and local entrepreneurs to effectively reach unserved populations?
Yeah, well, basically going back to what I was mentioning before. I was talking about the biggest challenge that we face. I think the biggest way or biggest opportunity of collaboration that we could find right now is to have governments helping us structure blended structures to reduce risk of this type of investments. Today, if you go to Colombia, for example, you can find some blended structures even in the local market that reduce risk of many companies. But given the needs that we find today in society, this is not enough. It would be amazing to have blended structures. And when I say blended structures, basically money that it's given by institutions to lower the risk of potential investments and help bring capital from private sector into these investments. This could be amazing to reduce risk of several sectors like clean water, for example, agriculture, or even renewable energy sectors that in many cases face different risk every day, execution risk. They face political risk, economic risk, even hedging risk, FX risk. So it would be really, really good if we can join forces with the public sector to bring some of these structures, of the blended structures. Some could be, for example, concessional capital, in which a public entity gives a loan as part of the investment and help us from the private sector, join forces and give the funding needed for this company to generate growth and at the same time generate the social impact that we are all looking for. Another example of blended finance that would be excellent for as a collaboration in the current situation could be a guarantee vehicle in which the public sector takes part of the losses so that the private sector is willing to put money into these high-risk companies in different sectors. So that's another example that could be really, really useful for us. And it's a clear example of collaboration between the public and private sector. And I think the last maybe blended structure that I can think about is basically a technical assistance. In many cases, companies need technical assistance to fulfill some of their goals, even starting from growth or even reporting all the key metrics that many lenders ask to the company in order to give the money needed for growth. So I think at the end, having this blended structure is a perfect example of collaboration that could help us go ahead and break the challenges that I was mentioning in the question before.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you for your examples. Now I'm going to go for David Uribe, Chief Technology Officer in Oracle Colombia and Ecuador. David, what is the role of a multinational technology company such as Oracle in fostering and supporting inclusive innovation between governments and local entrepreneurs?
Okay. Oracle is a company that offers technological solutions to its customers in terms of applications, development platforms, and computing infrastructure for both on-premise and in the cloud. The question is, how do you make it possible for everyone not only to access technology, but to have the possibility of becoming a provider of technological solutions? I believe that in order to achieve inclusive collaboration between government and entrepreneurs, 4 elements are broadly needed. The first one is a platform that connects entrepreneurs and state entities so they can sell and buy efficiently. The second one is internet access in the most remote places for inclusive coverage. Milagros was talking about it with Millicom and government collaboration. That's very important. The third one is inclusive access to technology. And the last one, knowledge of technology. In the first 2 elements, the platform and internet access, it is usually the state that is responsible for the solution in collaboration with other companies, as Milagros said. For example, in Colombia, we have the platform Colombia Compra Eficiente. I guess we all know it. This translates Colombia Efficient Purchase. This is a kind of marketplace where suppliers publish their products or services, and state entities order from there. In the same way, the Colombia government has made and will continue to make efforts to expand internet access in the most remote areas, as Milagros was talking about. And it is in the next two elements, access to technology and knowledge, where technology companies like Oracle must play a fundamental role. Oracle, for example, has a tier of cloud services that are always free, and other services then can be accessed for a limited time for free. With these, entrepreneurs from less favored areas access technologies without having to invest from the beginning. But on the contrary, this free technology leverages the operation and growth of their business. But inclusive access to technology is not enough if you don't know how to use it. And here comes the fourth element, knowledge of technology. So Oracle in Latin America has developed a program called Oracle Next Education, that offers education at no cost to develop technical and non-technical skills in programming and entrepreneurship for those people who cannot access formal education. To date in Colombia, we have more than 2,000 registered students and more than 400 certified people. And additionally, we have alliances with companies interested in hiring these people in case they don't wish to be entrepreneurs.
Thank you, David. A second question, from your experience, what is the potential of business to government models in delivering essential services to the last mile?
Yeah, once you have this public procurement platform, the B2G model begins to cover these essential services. For example, in Colombia, I know about that the Colombia Compra Eficiente platform has a humanitarian aid catalog where each local government can acquire supplies to mitigate crises such as the pandemic. Which is in 2021 helped more than 600 local councils in Colombia. So with this platform, we can offer this kind of essential service to the last mile.
David. And now we're going to go with Lucy June, the co-founder and CEO of Medico. Lucy, you participated in one of the first pilots of the Inclusive Innovation Journey. Why did Salud Tools decided this was the time to develop a business to government model?
Sure, so I'll give you a straight answer. We have been always interested in B2G model because we would love to reach out to more our target patients all over in Colombia. And B2G model can guarantee it. So to Medico, we have well-established business model in B2C and B2B, and we have a proven record in doing two lines of business very successfully. But in terms of B2G, we had just one pilot project with Defensa Civil Colombiana, which is civil protection against natural disasters. Right before the pandemic in San Andres, which is a beautiful island in Colombia where the ocean is Turkish blue and green. So I'm definitely recommending all of you to visit there. So beautiful. But unfortunately, before the pandemic, the huge hurricane attacked this area. So these hurricane basically destroyed everything, even hospitals and clinics. So with a special alliance with the Wi-Fi company and Defensa Civil, the government organization and us, Medico, we provided the telemedicine service to the hurricane victims in the area. Based on this experience, we have learned that it is the model that which would take us to our people group who are in a really vulnerable situation or absolute need of medical consultations, which is our target group as well. So during the pandemic, of course, we could attend a lot of patients through B2B and B2C. It has been very successful, but we have been questioning ourselves a lot that do we cover all patients that need our telemedicine service? So we have been trying to execute the B2G model, but we just didn't know where and how to start. And therefore, the pilot program of Inclusive Innovation Journey by UNDP and Business Call to Action was a perfect program for us to learn about the B2G model.
Thank you, Lucy. And what are some of the benefits of developing business to government models that are centered on the needs of underserved communities in the last mile?
Great question. And okay, let's say telemedicine is not a new thing, right? I'm pretty sure all of you here have heard about it before and probably have used it a lot of times, and it's nothing new, you know. But in LATAM, telemedicine has done a very poor job because it's mainly accessible to those who have premium insurance or bank accounts or credit cards. The rest, 47% of LATAM population, around 330 million people who basically make money every day to survive every day, they're left out of this service. These people cannot use telemedicine service because it's not there for them. So they actually, to take care of their health or the family's health, they have to travel to the hospital or clinic to give up a daily income without knowing that they could actually solve the problem. You know, it's a big deal. So to serve these underserved communities through only B2G and B2G, B2B and B2C, of course, we could help people in need, but there are limitations that I just mentioned. But through the B2G model, we could leverage the penetration rate to these communities into another level. And additionally, we can provide the service more economically to our patients. Of course, we're talking about sustainability. So we have three, right? Powerful reach, wide coverage, and better price and sustainability. Golden, right? So to achieve this through the program that I just mentioned, Inclusive Innovation Journey by UNDP and Business Call to Action, we have discussed various things about the B2G model, starting with the discussion how the government organizations would think of us or how they perceive us, telehealth startups. How can we take advantage of it? How can we take it around? And we had a mentor who could actually analyze our business with a very, very objective perspective, and also give us some lights about what kind of opportunities that we have and how to design a B2G model, how to implement it, how to measure the impact. So important, right? It's to measure the impact of our business and use it more effectively to convince the government officials. And also we have listened to various presentations who have achieved the alliances with the government. So it was a great, amazing program, thanks to UNDP Colombia and Business Call to Action again. So after that, we have been trying to improve our strategy to B2G model, and we have been networking continuously, just like we have learned from the program. And yeah, we're very excited about it. The first step that to reach more people with better sustainability and better price to underserved community through B2G model.
Thank you, Lucy. And it was also a pleasure for us to know you and work with you in the program. Before moving to our last panelist, I would like to motivate the audience, if they have some questions, to please post them so we can discuss them after we talk to Camilo. And now we go to Camilo Coronado, Project Management Specialist, Governance in USAID Colombia. Camilo, you said that USAID Colombia is making great efforts to leverage on existing public initiatives to facilitate the access of private companies interested in investing in projects that not only have benefits from them in the short term, but also have the potential to benefit the most needed. Could you please expand on this? What does USAID Colombia expect to get?
Thank you, Juan David, for the opportunity to share what we are doing here at USAID Colombia's office. I would like to mention that a couple of examples of innovative mechanisms we are currently working on, but public, but each one at different stage of implementation. The first one is called Works for Taxes. This mechanism was originally developed in Peru. However, it has been tailored to Colombia's own specificities. Works for Taxes was created to bring closer the private sector as a key player for sustainable peace, targeting private resources and funds, taxes that companies have to pay, and direct those funds to those regions affected the most by the armed conflict in the country. And of course, regions that are affected by high levels of poverty as well. By its very nature, we saw a lot of potential of this mechanism because it has kind of three intentions to achieve, like 3 wins. The first one is for the private sector by reducing the tax payment cycle, which means that the private sector could benefit from having timely access to public services like roads, infrastructures, hospitals, schools. The second win is for the government by the better use of tax funds, which means that the government can leverage on the efficiencies of the private sector in order to achieve public value. And the third one is for the communities themselves, that they are going to receive and benefit from timely service delivery. And the second mechanism is the development of a standard project for telemedicine and telehealth. And it is in some way related on the work that Lucy just mentioned. We have been working with 2 institutions, the National Planning Department and the Ministry of Health. We are at the final stage of kind of these clearances, public procedures. And once we can release the standard project, all the municipalities across the country will be able to use this mechanism to address health issues. Some benefits of the standard project are the reduction up to 70% of pre-investment costs, which could be a really relief for those municipalities that have not enough funds to invest on structuring a project, and up to 4 months in project design and structuring as well. With implementation of this mechanism, we also are aiming to achieve 3 wins. The first win is for local governments by better using limited resources like funds, the staff, technical capacities. The second win is for the private sector, like health providers, startups, joint ventures, like those that Lucy just mentioned. They could benefit from having a new and unexplored business opportunity provided by the public sector. And the third win is, of course, for local and rural population that will benefit from timely access to health services. But now I would like to share, like, how do we move on from thinking and planning to practice? And I would like to focus on the mechanism of Works for Taxes. Works for Taxes was first used in 2018 after some institutional and regulation arrangements were made. The fiscal ceiling, that is the overall amount that the government of Colombia allows to be used in this mechanism, is near like $60 million per year at a current exchange rate. From 2018 on, the number of companies using this mechanism has kept increasing, going from 28 in 2018 to 94 in 2021. But how we as USAID we engaged with this mechanism? First, we engaged with the public sector at the subnational level, like working directly with the municipalities, with governors' offices affected by armed conflict and poverty, and provided tailored technical assistance in the design and structuring of projects in health, education, and infrastructure sectors. And I would also like to highlight that we are intentionally working on these sectors. The most of the needs of unserved populations are related to this. And with the private sector, we use like a pedagogical strategy to promote the participation in implementing key development projects in needed geographies with challenging conditions. Our intention with the deployment of this strategy is that companies are interested in investing, considering a medium long-term perspective and not a short-term economic one. From time to time, we revise our strategies of engagements with both parties, considering first the ever-changing conditions in the regions where USAID operates, and second, the adjustments of regulations issued by the government of Colombia. But this is kind of how we operate, but I would like to share with all of you an example that we are working right now. And this example is being implemented, or this project is being implemented in the Municipality of Salinata. Key elements to highlight. First, Salinata is located in one of the most violent regions in the country. Second, Salinata receives constant migrant population from Venezuela. And third, it lacks proper infrastructure. 90% of municipal roads are either regular or in bad condition. For all the audience, Salinata is a municipality located near the frontier with Venezuela, with a population of 20,000 people, 60% living in rural areas where not only the municipal administration, but also the government of Colombia face challenges in delivering timely public services. Considering that Salinata is a municipality prioritized by USAID interventions, we decided to work with the local administration, assisting in the design and structuring of a project to improve near 1 kilometer of tertiary roads in rural areas, to stimulate more regional equity, security, connectivity, and productivity. The interesting thing in this project is that in parallel, we work with Medical Duarte. Medical Duarte is a company that provides health services, and they were kind of interested in investing and working in this road infrastructure project because they see how they can give something back to the communities. And of course, they are thinking in a long-term perspective, because if the roads are improved, of course, people from rural areas are able to have access to health services. We are providing technical assistance to Medical Duarte in topics related to regulations, the understanding and use of the financial mechanisms establishing works for taxes, and sharing good practices generated by USAID from our own experiences in infrastructure projects on tertiary roads. One positive effect of this relationship is that Medical Duarte has created their own technical unit for designing and structuring projects, and they plan to expand the technical assistance to other municipalities, realizing that they can add more value and give something back to the most needed communities across the country.
Thank you, Camilo, for your answer and for your examples. And now, if we're thinking about the future, what challenges do you envision the public-private partnership for sustainable development in Colombia will face in a context of huge expectations and at the same time uncertainty?
Okay, thank you. As you probably know, Colombia is entering into a phase with a new elected government. It has been like 1 month and a half that a new government was elected, and they have kind of been sending messages of their priorities in terms of guaranteeing the provision of public services to the most needed, not only in conflict-affected regions, but across the country. In USAID, we agree with that, the importance for the provision of timely public services, but also we acknowledge the importance of the private sector as a key player that supports the government of Colombia, like setting in motion all the machinery needed to advance with these priorities. And also we acknowledge the need for the private sector to have the right incentives to keep on investing in these innovative mechanisms, approaches like Courts for Taxes, the stand-up projects, and many other initiatives that were not mentioned here. And those initiatives, of course, are clearly linked with having clear rules and responsibility to all actors. But also there are other structural challenges, for example, security issues in the country that limit the possibilities for the private sector to deploy safety, their interventions, or the push between licit versus illicit economies in the regions for labor, mostly from rural populations. And most of the time, this population need kind of to trade off between both options. And finally, there are challenges that can be considered more like a technical or regulation challenges, like the never-ending process and countless requirements, revisions and clearances that companies have to face when dealing with initiatives such as Courts for Taxes, or difficult relationships with some municipal offices that either technically or politically do not consider innovative public-private mechanism useful for their territories. And on these challenges, we as USAID have the experience and willingness to step in, first supporting public institutions in streamlining processes for public policies being more effective. And of course, we can leverage on our goodwill and reputation in the region where USAID has had presence for many years. I finished by emphasizing that here in USAID Colombia, we leverage on existing innovative mechanism that work while the effort of trying. You know, like sometimes these mechanisms are hard to try. It takes time and effort for them to be effective. They must be proven. They may fail. They must be adjusted, but it worthwhile the trying of these mechanisms to work. Back to you, Juan. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilo, and thanks for those wonderful insights. Before we move to a couple of questions that we already have in the chat, I would like to thank again to all our panelists, in some cases partners, and all collaborators. Sustainable development needs not only innovative solutions, we need innovative alliances and collaborations to solve current challenges and reach the goals we have faced as humanity. I'm gonna read the first question that we have, and maybe I'm gonna direct it to Jose. If anyone else wants to talk about it, please raise the hand so we can know you're gonna talk. So this is the question from Dose Susunga. I hope I said that name well. Without institutional reforms at national, subnational, and local level, do businesses alone are enough for us to achieve the SDGs? I'm gonna maybe repeat it. Without institutional reforms at national, subnational, and local level, do businesses alone are enough for us to achieve the SDGs? Jose.
Yeah, well, I think at the end, businesses alone are not enough to achieve the SDGs. In my opinion, we need the participation of many actors, not only businesses, but private sector that can give the funding needed by these businesses, institutions like the IDB or USAID that can provide, for example, technical assistance, grants, additional help that the business may need in regards to knowledge, or even additional funding. So for SDGs to be achieved, I agree that we need the participation of all of the institutions and of course governments. If in some cases governments need to adjust policies, be more proactive, that's something that must happen for us to participate and promote the fulfillment of the SDGs.
Thank you, Jose. Maybe someone else wants to add on that? In the meantime, I can say we definitely believe at UNDP and of course at BCtA, we need to collaborate to achieve the goals and to achieve the challenge that we're facing right now. From innovative ideas and entrepreneurs to organizations such as the ones we have here, we are trying to articulate what we could do for communities and to solve the challenges and offer more value. We have a second question. It's from Samia Aboni, and maybe this is for Lucy. This is the question. So how are you reaching to communities without phones and bank accounts?
Sorry, so the question, can you repeat the question, please?
Of course. The question from Samia Awani. How are you reaching to communities without phones and bank accounts?
Oh, okay, I understand. So underserved community, I mentioned that most of them, like 47% of the Latin population, don't have bank accounts, which means that they cannot access to the telemedicine service. Usually, well, the telemedicine service is provided those who have bank accounts or credit cards or so yes, but the thing is, so that's why we are providing, let's say we're selling the telemedicine service through the local pharmacies. Local pharmacies, you can buy just like buying a bottle of water, you can pay cash, right? With this, anyone can buy the telemedicine service just as easily as buying a bottle of water. And of course, there are cases, some patients don't have smartphones that we can talk to. In this case, there are always family members or friends who can help us to reach to these patients. And in the extreme cases, we need to call the home phone, but also we can actually realize the telemedicine service through this way as well.
And if you want to get in there with a reply. Okay, now we have our third questions, and maybe I'm gonna direct this to Camilo. It's a question from Miguel Hernandez. What is the role that a donor such as USAID can play in supporting this type of public-private partnerships and B2G models? I'm gonna repeat it. The question from Miguel Hernandez. What is the role that a donor such as USAID can play in supporting this type of public-private partnerships and B2G models?
Well, I think that donors, depending on their nature, kind of have to look at both parties. For example, here with USAID, we have some windows that work directly with the public sector and some programs that work directly with the private sector, identifying what are those needs and the technical assistance they may require. Maybe kind of piloting some initiatives and providing some capital to run some projects to identify if they are going to work or not. So I think it is important for all actors to identify where they can kind of target their efforts, their money. Here at USAID, we have those possibilities because we have the resources, we have the willingness of the mission and the support, of course, of the United States government. But for companies that kind of have constraining resources, they have to leverage and kind of the trade-off between working directly with the private sector or the public sector, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilo. Regarding time, and thank you all for being here. We would like to thank all of you panelists and the participants for this fantastic discussion on the potential of government-led inclusive innovation and B2G models in providing essential goods and services to underserved communities. A very special thanks to our esteemed panelists, Milagros, Jose, David, Camilo, Lucy. Thank you very much for joining this panel and sharing your experiences with us. This session kickstarted the first day of the BCTA's 12th Annual Forum, an event on the sidelines of the 77th United Nations General Assembly. Join us for the upcoming session on transformative role of inclusive public procurement, where we'll discuss strategies and best practices for enhancing SME uptake in public procurement processes. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you there. Bye-bye.